Hello, I'm Trey, and welcome back to part two of my dragon tutorial. In the first part of this tutorial, I coloured in the dragon, and also in the first part, I picked a limited palette, and I just wanted to look at that again with a limited palette because obviously, with only a few colours, I have to look at my design and pick what elements are going to be what colour. And when I'm looking at that, I'm looking at balance. How does it balance out? How can I pick up the purple? What are the leaves are going to be so that it doesn't all look one colour or only one colour in one part. Obviously, with the colour palette I chose, I didn't have a brown, so I'm going to go with the blue greens for the tree house. I'm going to start the tree house today with this tutorial. There is quite a bit of detail in the treehouse, but I'm going to cover all of the base in the lightest colour I'm using, and these are the colour I'm using with Marco Renoir pencils, and they were a bluey green from the original palette. As always, when I'm doing my colouring, I do a very light first layer. It's kind of rough, nothing too precise. Now that's a light base layer. Now parts of this tree here I can see like strands coming down. I'm going to do those in a different colour so they stand out. And I'm going to colour this tree from the light coming from the top. So I won't be highlighting all these different lines. I'll be shading in over all of the lines. So now I'm going to use my next darkest colour to add in some shaded highlights. This part here is inside, so I'm going to shade a little bit there. Because I'm going from the light coming from the top, this part will be lighter, so I'm going to put some shading around the bottom of the part of the trunk. And underneath that part of that stump, this part here, underneath here, I'm going to put a bit of shading. So I am using lines in a little bit to do this shading. So that's because that sticks out. Inside here would be like a dip, and around here underneath this section. Now this is a little bit complicated here because that strand goes across, so I'm going to assume that's a leaf, that's a strand, and go around that, because that'll be a different colour. I'm looking at some of these lines to see what I can do shading, and there's like a stronger line there, so I'm going to shade those parts. The window, underneath the window will be a shadow. And again underneath this strand. I'm going for the obvious areas at the moment where I feel there would be a shadow if light was coming from the top. And that's generally where things overlap. Underneath here, because the dragon would make a shadow. And make all of that darker. And the further down you get away from the top of the tree house would also be darker. And that looks like it's coming out, so I'm going to leave that lighter to highlight that and put the shading in here so it looks almost like a step effect. Follow that line round. That's that, a little bit of shading done for that part of the tree house. Again, it's only roughly done, so I can change it if I need to. Now shading around that part of the treehouse because it's actually in front of the main section. And again, that will have some shading as it overlaps. There's a rough layer of colouring at this point. I can darken it in later. It's just so I know where I feel my light and dark sections are. Down there would be darker, in between the door and the tree, part of the treehouse. Now at the top, there would be shading underneath these leaves, because the light is coming from the top that I've decided, so I'm going to shade underneath all there. Underneath these leaves as well. I'm doing a light source. I quite often find that choosing one from the top coming down is the easiest, especially when you have things that are overlapping. Right, I'm going to shade the edge here of the tree house and slightly darker. Now that is an inside, so I'm just going to do around the edge to make it look like it's slightly darker, because the tip, of course, will be lighter. It's in the sun as such, in the light. I'll come further down here now. There's a window. Again, overlapping underneath this strand. And do the edges there. So inside all that foliage would be in shadow. I'm going to just going to darken it in between the leaves and the flowers. Now around this door I'm going to do a little bit of slightly darker area. Inside and the other side of that stalk, stem, whatever it is. Because further down you go, the darker it gets as well. So all of these areas down here I'm going to shade in darker. Underneath this leaf. So how far you come up with the darker side, it's up to you. I kind of look to the other side and what I've done and how far I've brought the darker sections up and try to even it out. Oh, that's the next layer, and it's starting to look reasonably okay for the shading. Now I'm going to darken in a little bit more with the darkest bluey green colour I have, and it's highlighting sections I think would be the darkest. I mean, again, this is my choice, what I think would be the darkest. And hopefully it will give anybody else an idea of they could do this or a design similar to this. Underneath here, because the lightest part would be the top there, so that would be underneath and darker. And follow that strong line round that section as well. Right. Anywhere I feel there's an obvious overlap, I will put the darkest colour in. There's a line here, remember? Go around there. And of course at the bottom, this will be darker as well, so I'll use my darkest colour to highlight that more. Now this line here will be the overlap from the front part of this treehouse and the back. So I'm going to do a dark highlight all the way around there. Underneath that strand there. Trying to give the impression that this is in front of the other, and you can do that with shadow and light. The lighter it is, it comes forward, the darker it is, it goes back. Right off. Darkening the bottom part of this section, which is the main part of the tree. Still only doing light pressure on this part, this first layer, for all the colours, so I can darken it in or lighten it if I, wish. I still have that option. Now again behind here, foliage would make it darker, so I'm going to darken it in. Underneath this window. And again, where these leaves overlap. The edging of the tree, a little bit darker. Of course, inside there would be. Right. And you can see now where the shadow is highlighting sections that are behind and in front. So the darker sections actually makes the lighter section stand out more, so it looks like it's behind and in front. And it's a nice effect that when you're using shading to emphasize parts of a design as overlapping. So I'm going to do extra shading on that off camera and come back to it when I've done that. After doing my layering for the treehouse, I felt anyway that it wasn't quite dark enough for the shadows. So I'm going to darken it up a little bit more. Make more of a contrast. Having a measured approach to your colouring can be quite beneficial. It slows everything down, and that is beneficial for people who do suffer from anxiety. It enables the brain to process information better and also deal with anxiety in a more easier. Anxiety tends to make you go faster and can be overwhelming. So doing some of the life skills and tutorials in session for the charity that I help manage, these are the kind of techniques that are used, and it's very beneficial. You can see people come down from an anxious state by breaking down techniques and activities, and it allows them to think and not be overwhelmed. Everybody in life probably feels anxious at some point, and especially in today's life. I'm not sure if anybody's noticed, but everything is so fast these days. Technology enables you to multitask, but quite often the brain doesn't want to multitask. You can't cope with multitasking, and that actually can cause anxiety and stress. So some of the techniques I was using in session, I decided to bring it to my own activities. And I noticed that I was able to connect more. I was more mindful of what I was doing, and it was very beneficial to my own anxiety. And I found I enjoyed the process more when I was colouring. I'd actually could tell you what the journey was rather than just getting to the end. I think that works much better now. A little bit more of a contrast. Now I'm going to look at the doors and the windows now for this tree house, and I've chosen to do greys for those. I'm working on my limited palette. Just going to do the first layer in the lightest colour and add the shading later. Now I'm going to do a little bit of shading. The colours that I've chosen in the original palette were like a bluey grey, so they're going to work quite nice and complement quite nice with the turquoisey green of the main tree house. I'm just going to be putting in shading where I feel there would be some, going from the light come down onto the tree house from the top. Window frames are the same. I'm going to do a bit of shading. I'm going to do the inside of the frame slightly darker than the outside, because it'll be almost like a indented. My darkest grey is almost like a charcoal grey. I didn't have a dark enough blue in this set of pencils that the Renoirs, so I'm going to use a almost like a charcoal grey to do the darkest shading. I'm just having a light touch though, because I don't want it to go too dark. still has like a bluish tint, so it should work quite well. Right, I've got my windows and doors, the first layer on, and I will now do some extra layers and come back to that. I've done about 2-3 layers and a little bit of a light blend for the doors and the windows, and now I'm going to add a little bit more of an highlight. And I want to try and highlight these lines between, almost like planks on the door. I'm using my darkest colour of the greys to do this. And I'm also going to go around the edge of all the door, see if I can highlight it a bit more from the door frame. Right, the glass, I'm going to do like a warm colour. I'm going to use the peach. I'm just going to do it around the edges, just a little bit of peach around the edge of the inside of the windows. Give maybe the impression of a light on. And I'm also going to do the handle and these hinges in the peach. I use the brown for shading that section, and these are the same colours I used on the dragon. Right, and that's the tree house finished. So that's also the end of this part of the tutorial. I like how that door turned out. The hinges look almost tarnished. That was a happy accident there. So next time when I come back, I hopefully will be able to finish this design. I'll do these sections that are coming off the tree house, and of course the leaves, little flowers, and the stonework. So I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial and you've got some useful information from it. It's been helpful, and I'll see you next time.